All right, we start with some developing news out of southwestern Russia, where a passenger plane has crashed. Reports suggest at least 55 people are dead. Nearby surveillance video shows Dubai Flight 981 turn into a fireball, then hit the ground just before 4 a.m. local time. The airline says it is aware of an incident involving the plane. Now, the aircraft, a Boeing 737, crashed as it was attempting to land at the Rostov-on-Don airport about 200 kilometers east of Donetsk. Aviation analyst Todd Curtis is joining us now from Boston. Todd, what's your reaction to what you're seeing in that surveillance video?
Well, the surveillance video indicates a fireball, and it's a somewhat distant video, but apparently from the length of the fireball, it looks as though the airplane was traveling at a significant horizontal speed. Another thing about the conditions at the airport, there was fairly severe gusts at the time, roughly about 49 knots, and that could have figured into the difficulties they had in landing.
Yeah, there were reports of poor visibility. What factor does that play?
It depends on many factors, including the resources at the airport. The modern airliners, such as the 737-800, can land in some fairly challenging conditions. And in fact, the kind of wind that was there, although it's high, is not beyond the capability of the aircraft, depending on the conditions at the runway, the relative direction of the wind, etc. So until the investigative authorities get into the details of what happened here, it's unclear whether weather had a significant effect on what happened.
Now, the crash happened when the plane was attempting to land. What do you make of that?
Well, apparently from the early reports, this was during its second landing attempt. And it could mean many things. It could be a visibility problem. There could have been a problem with the navigational aids at the airport, or a problem on board the aircraft itself. And again, unfortunately, there are no survivors, so they won't be able to question the crew. So it will be up to the investigative authorities to get the cockpit voice recorder and the flight data recorder and try and glean information as to what happened in the final moments of flight.
That's right. So what can you tell us about the type of plane that was involved?
Well, the 737-800 is a current production model of Boeing. It's the newest generation of the 737. And this particular aircraft was on a fleet of flydubai that had 50 of these aircraft. And the average age was only about 3.5 years. So this was a fairly new fleet. This was a fleet that was gathered up in the last few years. And this is an airline which has been operating since roughly 2009. And has roughly 2,800 flights per week. So this is not a small, out-of-the-way airline. This is an airline with a fairly modern fleet, a relatively large fleet compared to most fleets in the Middle East. And it'll be interesting to see what role, if any, the procedures and the organizational structure of the airline, had when it came to this accident.
Okay, aviation analyst Todd Curtis joining us. Thanks so much, Todd.
Thanks for having me.